Hi, everyone. Thank you so much, and welcome back to The Lift with Sheila Robinson Kiss. This is a channel where we're focused on mental health, movement, motivation, and relevant topics to uplevel your life. And I can't think of a more relevant topic than beyond politics, everyone. How to repair and heal your relationships inside of this very toxic and tough political climate that we find ourselves in. So, to that end, I want to be clear, this is not a video about politics. It really is about the mental health factor and the impact that all of this toxicity has had on our relationships. I cannot tell you how many people, groups, families I've heard from, and over the last year who are literally just torn up emotionally. There's a lot of um, hurt feelings and hard feelings that this political climate we're in the midst of has brought up. So I want to do a couple things in this video beyond just kind of uh, being upset and agitated, and we're going to move beyond pointing fingers. I want to talk a little bit about why people do what they do, why they make the decisions to support who they're going to support, why some issues matter more to folks than others. It's a conversation that's left off the table, and it's a missing piece because I feel like once you hear it, it really does check a lot of boxes and explain a lot, and then you're free to make your own decision. But I would also start out with a question. And that question is, it's kind of straight between the eye. You're going to have to ask yourself, is it worth it? Is the long term damage to your relationship, is it worth, throwing out whole parts of your past and your future and your history with people you care about, in some instances people you work with, you've had good working relationships with, until all of this stuff comes up. So I want you to keep that question in the back of your mind. Hold on to that, and I want to take you inside of a mediation session that I recently had. And I think this session really mirrors what is happening in a lot of, whether it's workplaces, families, just this dynamic is going on inside relationships across the country. So, on this one hand, I had someone to look at me and say, Sheila, I am at a loss. I cannot understand. This is a person that we have broken bread together. We have worked side by side together. I know this person to be good, decent, and kind, and I just simply cannot square off. How can this individual that I know to be wonderful in my heart, how can they support and vote for someone that I am just so turned off by? I don't agree with their politics whatsoever. They've said harsh things, and I just cannot reconcile the two. And then I have another person to turn to me and say, I'm hurt by all of this too, because how dare anyone question my goodness, my integrity, and more than that, how dare I be challenged on my fundamental right to think differently, to support who I want to support, to move how I want to move in this world. So I want to really take a deeper dive into it's just necessary how people come to view the world in the way they do, and why are some people more comfortable supporting one issue, other people are not. It's, not deemed that big of a deal. So I want you to keep three terms in mind that we're going to visit inside of this video message today. Number one is the ability to compartmentalize. Okay. Secondly, I want to talk about the power And we ignore this frequently as well, the power of lived experiences. And then third, I want you to keep um, perspective, this word perspective, in mind, because you'll see how they all come together and answer a lot of questions and can really create some ventilation for a lot of frustration. Another key phrase I want you to keep in mind is a psychological phrase. It's called the fundamental attribution error. And I see this happening so much in the discourse and the emotions that are flying around. And fundamental attribution error, it basically means that I'm going to stop and overlook the circumstances and side of the situation, and I'm going to attribute everything to a personality characteristic you have. So in other words, because you support this leader that rubs me the wrong way, that has said things that are racially insensitive, I'm just going to lump you in with this person to say you're racist, or you're bad. I don't want to hear what you have to say. You're all can go in the same pile. And I'm here to tell you, I've been doing this work for darn near 25 years, that if it were that simple, if you could simplify it like that, we really wouldn't be in the mess we're in. There are so many nuances involved that people, it's just easy to overlook. So I want to go into a few of those mechanics. Number one, you really cannot overstate the power of the ability to compartmentalize. And this is something I'm explaining why some of this is happening, why the hard feelings, why people do what they do. Some of what I'm saying, you may not like it or appreciate it, but I'm really in the business of sharing information that can check boxes and make a difference for your life. So having said that, the ability to compartmentalize means that a person can section off pieces of their life or information in ways that don't necessarily create a conflict. So there's always this part of, people are just going to think differently. That's true too, but I'm taking you inside the mechanics of how and why people think differently and how it can look dramatically different across the board. So I'll give you an example of an ability to compartmentalize. Some years ago, I worked with a gentleman who was basically leading a double life. And when I say double life, I don't mean, oh, he played poker one day and went to church the next. No, I mean, he literally had two different families in two different areas. Neither one knew about the other. And I remember him turning to me and saying, Sheila, in my mind, they don't have anything to do with one another. I'm a good provider for both. No one's suffering. So, I could go on and on about that, and it's something of an extreme example, but this person had the ability to heavily compartmentalize those realities so they wouldn't compete with one another. So many of us, and the ability to compartmentalize, it happens in degrees, but to some extent, most of us do some level of compartmentalizing just to cope. So coming back to an example from this tough political climate, when you put the ability to compartmentalize in there, you can easily understand how someone could support a leader who is not able to say with empathy, considering all the fallout and the Black Lives Matter, is not able to say into the camera, yes, Black Lives Matter. I can say that with compassion without anyone having to force me to do it. You could understand how someone who you know to be kind, warm, a decent, loving person could witness that, could hear that, and could experience that. And if they're compartmentalizing that, one might say, I hate that he can't do it. I hate, the way he talks. I don't agree with that. And it's unpleasant. And I put that in one compartment of it's not so good, it's unpleasant. But over here in four other compartments, I enjoy certain other aspects of this individual's personality. I like his or her policies on XYZ. So you see, when things get sectioned off and they're compartmentalized, they're really not competing. So again, I'm giving you the nuances and the mechanics so you can clearly understand what many people tell me I can't make sense of. That's what this video is doing, helping you make sense of it. And inside compartmentalizing, I want you to stay with me here a little bit. If you pair that with uh, the force, our lived experiences are more than an epic force in our lives. Let me give you um, an example. Um, I'm a mom now. I wasn't always, and I can remember before my little Sophie came, I would schedule educational program blocks of time for different companies, and from time to time, I would get a request. Sheila, can we do a 10 o'clock or a 11 o'clock start? We have a lot of parents on staff, a lot of single moms. Sometimes they're off to a late start. We want to make sure that everyone gets here. And I would never consider myself an inflexible person, but I also kept in the back of my mind, okay, if I don't do a late start, I can have, 3 blocks, 3 programs scheduled in a day. And I like things to run in a certain order. And I would also have in the back of my mind compartmentalized, you know, okay, this is work. You need to get here. I can understand this intellectually, but hey, if it's an 8 o'clock start, a 9 o'clock start, get here. How difficult could it be? What's all this stuff that can come up with these little people, these children? And so enter in, Sheila becomes a mom. And now I can tell you how much stuff can come up. And I'll never forget, my little Sophie had just crossed over to being a toddler. She had had a very difficult night. And we woke up in the morning. She threw up. Her temperature had spiked. And I had a round of programs to deliver. And I just looked at my little child. I'm like, I have to, there's no way. I have to take her to the hospital. We got to get this straightened out. I called in and I said, look, I'm going to need a late start. We have to push this at least until the afternoon. And the response, which I won't get into, it really wasn't pleasant, very inflexible. And I never forgot that. And I have to tell you, many moments after that, um, crashed into my ease and my ability to compartmentalize, because now I had the lived experience of being a mom. And I can tell you, to this day, I have a special block of programs that start later, because the experience informed my life in a different way. The experience informed my decision making in a different way. The experience informed my compassion in a new way. So one of the things, however pleasant or unpleasant it is to be taking a deeper dive into these conversations, the reality is all of us have a set of lived experiences. And this is why you will see, some things, when a leader is not sensitive or saying provocative or inflammatory things, that can hit and does hit all of us in very different ways based on lived experiences. So for me, being a woman of color, anything that is said that is racially inflammatory or insensitive, that is a trigger. I don't have the ability, because of my lived experiences, to do heavy compartmentalization in that area, because I know what it feels like to be denied opportunities because of my packaging. I know what it feels like um, to be called derogatory names or mercilessly teased as a child because of the color of my skin. So when you throw those issues in, for me, that supersedes everything. It supersedes gun rights. It supersedes environmental rights. And I don't say that those things aren't important. I'm putting that next to my lived experiences. And again, when those experiences crash into those walls of compartments, that's where you have people, it translates into different levels of behavior. It translates into, this hits me, and it's enough context in my life. It hits me hard enough where it would supersede some of those other issues. So I think is, I hope that what I'm saying makes sense. Someone may say, "Well, are you letting anyone off the hook?" Off the hook of what? The reality is, human beings, living, breathing, walking, talking, complex creatures. I'm giving you more context for the hot burning question that people are asking. How can there be such a divide? How can there be such a disconnect? And this information checks some boxes in that area. And taking all this into context, it does not make someone inherently evil or bad or wrong, because their experiences inside of their perspective, inside of how they organize things and compartmentalize things in their mind, does not lead them on the same road of agreement or the same end result as you. And that is something that ultimately we all have to keep in mind, because if everything falls apart and we stop communicating and we stop talking to each other, that rich contextual information that is so necessary for us to share for deeper understanding, it's not going to reach people like you. It's not going to reach people like me. It's not going to reach anyone. So, having said that, at the end of the day, I want to get into how you can heal and repair these relationships inside of some really dramatic differences in opinions. And at the end of the day, it's a dramatic difference in how we are all processing. The information is the same, but we process that information dramatically different based on our experiences. So, again, I've started with a question and I'm going to wrap up with that question. You have to decide, is the long range impact in giving up whole pieces of your past and your future, not just pieces, but good pieces, um, is that truly worth it to you? So I want you to keep a couple things in mind. How do you heal and repair if that is what you choose to do? Number one, understand that two things can be true at once. A person can be decent, kind, you can laugh with them, eat with them, break bread with them, and how they process ideas and circumstances can be dramatically different. You can be miles apart with someone you have regard and respect for. It feels so hard, and it feels so tough, and it feels so foreign because we haven't done a very good job in this country on handling differences and conflict. It's become very tribal. I can't look at you, I can't deal with you unless you are on the exact same page as me. It's actually quite dangerous when you really go further into that ideology. It's really quite dangerous because if you're in your camp and you're solidly feeling, nothing can get in, no new information can get in. The second step, if you really want to heal and repair and hit the reset button, is you're going to have to, even if it's uncomfortable, put your grievances out on the table. I'm a firm believer that everyone needs the emotions, the feeling, the words, what you need to say. You need an opportunity to put that on the table with the agreement that we're putting this on the table because it's important that you know exactly where I'm coming from. I need to know exactly where you're coming from. And once you've done that, you make the determination, is it worth it for us to repair this and to move forward at some level with the intention of we are going to heal. I myself, I recently had to have um, one of these really tough conversations and I laid it out. And it went something like this. I really, there's whole pieces of this that have really hurt me deeply. On some level, I understand this intellectually, but I do feel betrayed. There's whole pieces of my journey that you've watched me go through. You've watched those struggles, and to support behavior that is so contradictory to that, it is very, very hurtful for me, and you need to know that. I laid out some more, then I closed my mouth. Do you what do you want to share with me? And I should also say that what made this so painful is this is also a person who has been incredibly loving, incredibly kind, an incredibly supportive friend. So it was, again, there's that push pull, that tension, that conflict. I closed my mouth and I let this individual say what they wanted to say. There was tension. It was uncomfortable. You can expect that. And at the end of the day, the decision was made to move forward in the spirit of repair and healing, because why? There was such good context and good information and good memories and good times and all of that good stuff that I had to draw from in making that decision. And it may not be someone close to you. It could be a neighbor. It could be someone that you're working with. It could be more of a surface relationship, if you will. But you still have to decide how you're going to conduct yourself and how much power you're going to give this divisive state. Because if what you're saying, and again, you've heard me say this in many of my videos, we don't necessarily respond to what is happening. We respond heavily to what we tell ourselves is happening. And if your constant narrative is, this is a bad person, I can't deal with this person, I have zero respect for this person, it's going to be a rocky ride for you, especially if it's someone where you don't have the option. You have to deal with them. It is a coworker or someone who's positioned in your life in a way you don't have much wiggle room or more choice. A more empowered message is, you know what? There are reasons that this person feels the way they do, and we live in the United States of America. And thank God they have the right to feel how they want to feel. And I have the right to move and feel and think in a way that is elevating for me. At the end of the day, we need to grow our muscle to agree to disagree, or we end up it with mass chaos and mental health levels that are tanked, communication levels that are tanked. And it's really something to think about. And thirdly, piggybacking off of that, um, understanding deeply that the ability to move forward inside of an acknowledged disagreement. We have disagreed, we have aired this out, we have also consciously decided to move forward. It strengthens and, in some instances, cements relationships. The people who have the ability to look eye to eye and say, you know what, fundamentally, in every which way, sideways, up, down, left, side, right, I disagree with you with all that is in me. That said, we also, two things can be true at once. We share a lot of good stuff here, a lot of common ground. We need to move forward in the name of that. So, it's tough stuff. Anyone who says it's easy, they're not telling you the truth. But the silver lining of all this coming up in our country is it really gives us an opportunity, um, to have a reckoning, with ourselves, with one another. We have a huge opportunity, to move together, in more cohesive ways, a stronger way. I'm not saying that everyone will make the cut. There has been some things, that have been unearthed. Some truths have been revealed about people and institutions, that must be dealt with, um, head on. There will be relationships that are not, repaired, and for good reason. That's a whole nother video. I may tackle that in my next one, but I'm talking specifically in this video about, the dynamics where goodness a goodness of fit, there's enough context where you've had a rich walk, a lot in common. Those are the relationships that I really want you to take, a second, a deep second look at. I hope that this video has been informational. I will likely do a part two, but go back. You can even use this video as a springboard for opening up a conversation. And I'll be coming back soon with some great content. And you guys, give your relationships a second look. Thank you so much.